big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. This new year, get clean, quality, pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list, including Ritual's best-selling Essential Prenatal Multivitamin, designed with 12 traceable key ingredients to support a healthy pregnancy. With big changes coming up, take the small steps now and start today with 30% off a 3-month supply at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Duck shooters. Drunks are great characters. Duck shooting. In the hide. Very early in the morning. Very cold. No sign of the duck. And I have a little drop of rum to keep warm. And still no sign of the duck. And I have another little drop. And still no sign of the duck. And another and to the duck. One big, fat, lonely, dirty duck goes across the sky, all by himself. Flap. Quack, quack. Quack, quack. And the drunk picks up his shotgun and goes, ba-doom, ba-doom, and out goes into the lake. And his friend's there and he said, that is what I call great shooting. He said, well, you're bound to hit one out of a whole flock. So he said, Ducky, go and get the ducky. And the dog, instead of jumping into the water and swimming to the duck, runs across the top of the water. Picks up the duck and comes back, and the fellow says, do you notice anything strange about that dog? He said, yeah, he doesn't swim.
I have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk, Bobcat, Saloon. It's Thursday, therefore it's the aftermath, which I quantify as all the shite that I couldn't fit into the Tuesday Berserk, Bobcat, Saloon, and I didn't particularly feel motivated about talking in terms of Wednesday's Sackheads radio show. Wow, that was different. So today is in fact the aftermath. Today also happens to be May 25th, 2017, the year of our Lord. Belly up to the bar, we've kept you a seat, and it's great to see you back. We actually got some flack about flack bait recently, and that was over at the Ken McClinton show. Apparently he kind of fronted off White Mamba. Mamba didn't take it very well. Guess what? Flackbait is going to be a bartender tonight. He pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is lighted. We don't water our drinks, just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All that we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle. Don't forget to tip your server, okay? Please? Huh? Can't we all just get along? Tonight, in the Saloon, we have a very special guest. This will be my very first author that I've interviewed. And so we're going to be speaking to veteran firearms enthusiast and author Jim Curtis. As soon as you heard firearms enthusiast, you went, ooh, yippee. Nicely done. Then, before we get there, because Jim's going to come down at the bottom of the hour, he's going to call in at about 8:30 Pacific time, and about 11:30 Eastern Time. And in Bolivia, that'll be 1927 and 110 seconds. Then we're going to talk about Euro elites. It's kind of what Ken was talking about. Ken Bigfooted me. Actually, he didn't know that I was going to talk about this. And I didn't know that Ken was going to talk about that. But it's funny because the Euro elites, they giggled when President Trump said that they need to pay for their fair share of NATO. And they thought that was great fun. Amusing. Very amusing. Trey Gowdy comes in and says, hey, no reauthorization of surveillance, of any of the surveillance programs, until those unmasking questions are answered. What I'm going to start with, however, like I say, I seldom read entire articles unless they just really, really hit me, and I say something like, damn, I wish I'd read that. Well, when I get through reading a few things here, I'm gonna go over an article that's by, of all people, I know, calm down, sit down, it'll be okay, I swear. Yes, an article written by Alan Dershowitz. And I think he's spot on, and I think you'll understand why. President Trump came out recently and said that those who leaked will be prosecuted. Absolutely, Donald. Absolutely. Lou Dobbs says basically, hey, it's time for war. Wow. Harsh words. Lou, what do you mean? Let's listen. Well, excuse me. We'll listen to him in a bit. And then recently, guess what? I know you're going to be shocked when I say this to you. The Trump travel stay blocked by another federal district court of appeals, this time in Virginia. So what do we have? We have Muslims that are ruling our courts now. Good news, great news. Speaking of, Minnesota has decided that it's going to bend to Islam as well. I've got a whole bunch of rest of the stuff that, for the most part, I guess I could go in and tell you, but most of the time, I don't even get to it. It's sad. It's very sad. Ken had a great show. I enjoyed, and thank you, Ken, for leading into the show again, if you will. Let's look. Let's zip over to chat and see what we have. Uh-oh! White Mumbai was talking behind his back. So he's there in chat. We have Mike, who is in chat. We have 2 viewers who are in chat. And as is custom at the Berserk Bobcat Saloon, you will not be unmasked at all.
Big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. This new year, get clean, quality, pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list, including Ritual's best-selling Essential Prenatal Multivitamin, designed with 12 traceable key ingredients to support a healthy pregnancy. With big changes coming up, take the small steps now and start today with 30% off a 3-month supply at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
It's 2025, a new year, and the perfect time to turn your business dreams into reality. Maybe you've been tossing around a great idea, but haven't acted yet. Well, Shopify is how you're going to make it happen. Shopify makes it simple to create your brand, open for business, and make your first sale. With thousands of customizable templates, you don't need coding or design skills. Just drag, drop, and go. Plus, Shopify's social media tools help you connect all your channels and create shoppable posts so you can sell everywhere your customers scroll. Managing your business is easy too. From shipping to taxes to payments, Shopify handles the details on a single dashboard, letting you focus on what really matters: growing your business. Established in 2025 has a nice ring to it.
Period. End of statement. Now, having said that, here's the article that I have to tell you what I almost did tonight, but I'm just a techno coward. Besides, I hadn't washed my hair today, and it's just a mess, and I can't do a thing with it. I almost clicked on the little icon that's on the new SHR laptop that goes to YouTube, and I almost started YouTube tonight, But then it wanted me to do this and log in, blah, blah, and I didn't have the passwords, any of that stuff. But that's how close I came. Eventually, when I get my shite together, who knows when that'll be? No promises. Eventually, what I'd like to do is I would like to very much have YouTube going, just like SHR did. Not SHR yesterday, because unfortunately, Sackheads Clint and Sackheads Sean were gone, and so it was myself. And it became Sackhead's Jersey Joe, the Reaver of Common Sense, whom you should listen to every Monday through Friday on the SHR Media Network, the media network through which you are listening to stuff right now with me. So maybe in time, cross fingers, etc., eyes. I'll see if I can figure out this YouTube thing. It's a challenge. I have to tell you, it's a challenge. Here's an article from Alan Dershowitz, the attorney. He leans left. I guess you could say he leans left. Okay, he leans left. This was originally published by the Gatestone Institute, and the headline is this: Dershowitz, Manchester attack. Terror attacks will not stop until we're honest. So just by looking at that article, that title, I should say, the headline, I thought, okay, this is an article I think I want to read. And it goes like this. Every time a horrendous terrorist attack victimizes innocent victims, we wring our hands and promise to increase security and take other necessary preventive measures. But we fail to recognize how our friends and allies play such an important role in encouraging, incentivizing, and inciting terrorism. If we are to have any chance of reducing terrorism, we must get to its root cause. It is not poverty, disenfranchisement, despair, or any of the other abuse excuses offered to explain, if not to justify, terrorism as an act of desperation. It is anything but. Stop. This is from Alan Dershowitz. This is what everyone should be saying. But they are not. The apologists for Islam continue to say, well, we just had General Clark, a general under the previous administration, say that if only we could get these people jobs in the Middle East, they'd settle down and be quiet, and they'd take care of themselves. Bullshit. Unmitigated bullshit. The other question I had was, after reading that particular paragraph, where's the GOP on this? Where are the Republicans on this? Where are the conservatives on this? Have you, I asked, heard one conservative? Well, okay, stop. Let me not say conservative. Have you heard any Republican say that? The cause of terrorism is not poverty. It's not disenfranchisement. It's not despair. Any of the other abuse excuses that people give to justify terrorist acts and aid and abet them. Have you heard Republicans say that? I haven't. And how sad is it that that's true and that we have to hear the truth from a leftist attorney like Alan Dershowitz? I continue. If we are to have any chance of reducing terrorism, we must get to its root cause. Many terrorists, such as those who participated in the 9/11 attacks, were educated, well-off, mobile, and even successful. They made a rational cost-to-benefit decision to murder innocent civilians for one simple reason. They believe that terrorism works. Stop. Here's a shocker. That's why it's called terrorism. He continues, and tragically, they're right. The international community has rewarded terrorism while punishing those who try to fight it by reasonable means. Oh, and do I have the articles about that tonight? About what happened in Virginia? About what is going to happen likely in Minnesota? He continues, it all began with a decision by Yasser Arafat and other Palestinian terrorist groups to employ the tactic of terrorism as a primary means of bringing the Palestinian issue to the forefront of world concern. Stop. Actually not right. the father of terrorism, well, I should say, the semi-modern day father of terrorism is actually Michael Collins of the IRA. If you haven't read anything about Michael Collins, one man and a cadre of people found out just how far they can push a government and have a government on the run by committing terrorist acts. So it didn't necessarily start with Yasser Arafat, but he certainly, I would submit, he picked up on the tactics of that. Dershowitz continues, based on the merits and demerits of the Palestinian case, it does not deserve this stature. The treatment of the Tibetans by China, the Kurds by most of the Arab world, and the people of Chechen by Russia has been at least as bad. But their response to grievances has been largely ignored by the international community and the media because they mostly sought remedies within the law rather than through terrorism. Again, stating the truth, but it takes a leftist attorney to tell us this. Again, how many Republicans are saying that today following the Manchester bombing? He continues, the Palestinian situation has been different. The hijacking of airplanes, the murder of Olympic athletes in Munich, that occurred in 1974, and I distinctly remember that. The killing of Israeli children at Ma'alot, and many other terrorist atrocities perpetrated by Palestinian terrorists has elevated their cause above all other causes in the human rights community. Although the Palestinians have not yet gotten a state because they twice rejected generous offers of statehood, one of them was by Yasser Arafat, their cause still dominates the United Nations and numerous human rights groups. Other groups with grievances have learned from the success of Palestinian terror.
Big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. This new year, get clean, quality, pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list, including Ritual's best-selling Essential Prenatal Multivitamin, designed with 12 traceable key ingredients to support a healthy pregnancy. With big changes coming up, take the small steps now and start today with 30% off a 3-month supply at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Terrorism, and have emulated the use of that barbaric tactic. Even today, when the Palestinian Authority claims to reject terrorism, they reward, listen to this, you may or may not have known this, the Palestinian Authority claims to reject terrorism, yet they reward the family of suicide bombers and other terrorists by large compensation packages that increase with the number of innocent victims. There's Palestine for you. If the perpetrator of the Manchester massacre had been Palestinian, and if the massacre had taken place in an Israeli auditorium, the Palestinian Authority would have paid his family a small fortune for murdering so many children. There is a name for people and organizations that pay other people for killing innocent civilians. It's called accessory to murder. If the mafia offered bounties to kill its opponents, no one would sympathize with those who made the offer. Yet the Palestinian leadership that does the same thing is welcomed and honored throughout the world. The Palestinian Authority also glorifies terrorists by naming parks, stadiums, streets, and other public places after the mass murderers of children. Our ally, Qatar, finances Hamas, which the United States has correctly declared to be a terrorist organization. Our enemy Iran also finances Stop. Dershowitz had the balls that many will not, and almost no one on the left will, to say our enemy Iran. Again, truth, honesty. Our enemy Iran also finances, facilitates, and encourages terrorism against the United States, Israel, and other Western democracies without suffering any real consequences. The United Nations glorifies terrorism. Stop. Keep the truth coming, Alan. Keep it coming. The United Nations glorifies terrorism by placing countries that support terrorism in high positions of authority and honor, and by welcoming with open arms the promoters of terrorism. On the other hand, Israel, which has led the world in efforts to combat terrorism by reasonable and lawful means, gets attacked by the international community more than any other country in the world. Promoters of terrorism are treated better at the United Nations than opponents of terrorism. The boycott divestment tactic, BDS, is directed only against Israel and not against the many nations that support terrorism. So, he's beginning to conclude, Dershowitz is, terrorism will continue as long as it continues to bear fruits. The fruits may be different for different causes. Sometimes it's simply publicity. Sometimes it's a recruitment tool. Sometimes it brings about concessions, as it did in many European countries. Some European countries that have now been plagued by terrorism even released captured Palestinian terrorists. England, France, Italy, and Germany were among the countries that released Palestinian terrorists in the hope of preventing terrorist attacks on their soil. Their selfish and immoral tactic backfired. It only caused them to become even more inviting targets for the murderous terrorists. But no matter how terrorism works, the reality that it does will make it difficult, if not impossible, to stem its malignant spread around the world. To make it not work, the entire world must unite in never rewarding terrorism and always punishing those who facilitate it. That was an article by law professor and attorney Alan Dershowitz, who leans left, occasionally very hard left. But my God, when we have to find reason and sanity, honesty and clarity, two aspects that I value in any person on any topic, honesty and clarity, we're going now here to Alan Dershowitz to find the exact article that should have been written by any number of people on the Republican side. And have you seen an article written by a Republican that says this in such brevity and such clarity? Yeah, I have not. And that's why I had to read it to you today. That's why I had to read it to you tonight. I didn't know that Ken was going to do this. I almost feel bad by going over it, but I absolutely have to because it's so entirely sickening. The headline is, Leaders Appear to Snicker as Trump Calls on NATO Allies to Pay Their Fair Share. This is from Fox News. President Donald Trump spoke at the NATO headquarters on Brussels on Thursday and asked NATO members to pay their fair share. I wish you could see the photograph on Fox News Insider that accompanies this article, because in fact, Emmanuel Macron is smirking. He thinks this is funny. This is all very funny. Silly Trump. Silly America. How silly you all are. That you think that we NATO members need to pay our fair share. A message that didn't appear to sit well with some of the leaders in attendance. Not well at all. Why?
If all NATO members had spent just 2% of their GDP on defense last year, we would have had another $119 billion for our collective defense and for the financing of additional NATO reserves.
Okay, now stop. As I play this video, and I wish I had some kind of a setup where you could see the video as I'm playing it. Because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these fucktards are smiling. They think this is funny shite. That we actually think that they should pay part of their nut. Because here's the deal. Just as Ken, I think, pointed out, I'm not sure, but I'll say it for him if he didn't. If it weren't for the United States, you fucktards wouldn't be where you are right now, and most of you would be speaking German. We have numerous bodies that are lying adjacent Normandy Beach, thousands of them, who gave their lives on French soil to save you. And this is, again, how we are treated. You with snickering. Because this is funny. Because you know what? You're just like another poverty pimp. You're nothing but pimps and parasites. And you expect that everyone needs to... we need to bow and genuflect to those in Europe. Basically, all you are over there is nothing but globalist cock gobblers, patting each other on the back and pointing fingers at the guy with the dead orange cat on his head. You can't say that because I say that. That's my saying, Europe.
Did any of you see that snickering there? Look very closely. Leaders of Luxembourg, the left of him, Macron, who just took over in France. I could flash you other images there with Angela Merkel and others who are just sort of trying to contain their laughter that the President of the United States was calling them out for essentially being cheapskates, not contributing enough to the NATO fund. Only 5 of the 28 countries that make up NATO are contributing the minimum 2% of their GDP to help out. You know who's doing the lion's share of that heavy lifting? That would be the United States. Donald Trump said as candidate he would put an end to that. But just to put in perspective, the same people who are snickering at him and laughing at him, and you got to see this again and again. And
stop. If there's one thing that you do, either during the show or after the show, find out, go to Google, whatever it takes, and look at the video of President Trump addressing the leaders of NATO. Watch their faces. And if you don't go 210 over 190 just like Ken McClinton did, there's something wrong with you. There's something very, very seriously wrong with you.
And treating him like a pariah in the group photo outside the great NATO group picture. These are the same people who are caught on camera and will have to explain to the President of the United States, I wasn't really laughing at you. I was just, we were exchanging a joke. That's the ticket.
That's the ticket. Here's something that's great. Emmanuel Macron from France. The people were coming down in line, and then finally he got to President Trump. President fucking Trump almost tore his right arm off, shaking it. To me, that's called a clue. He took the guy's arm and was shaking it horizontally, then started to do it vertically and patted him. Like I said, he damn near took the guy's arm off. Kudos to Trump.
I'm telling you, when you look at how NATO is funded, we've carried the bill, that's, I guess, to be expected. We're the richest country on earth, fine. But some of these other countries who are not, including France, including Germany, they're being beat out by countries like Estonia and Poland, much poorer countries that can ill afford to do it, but are trying their damnedest because they think security is important.
By the way, do you know anything about Poland? Very few people do. The United States is actually respected and loved in Poland.
And these countries, of course, know firsthand what it is like.
Why? Because they were the first attacked by Hitler. You fucktard European elitist pricks, you don't get it.
To be overrun, to be dealing with dictators who out of the blue attack you. They have their respect for the United States. They have their respect for what we do. It is more than President Trump. It is about the country he represents and the leadership we have as head of this organization.
Absolutely true. But here's specifically why you, ladies and gentlemen, everyone that's listening right now, everyone live, everyone in chat, everyone who listens in podcast, this is why you should be absolutely upset. Because it's your money. Your money is paying for these pieces of shite to do this to you, to the United States. As far as they're concerned, they are due. They are entitled. They are entitled as Europe elitists operating out of Brussels to dip into your pockets and pull up whatever money they find in there, and to think that you would have, or in the presence of Donald Trump, President Trump, to think that he or you would have the absolute bottom line temerity to even remotely think that they need to pay their fair share. Well, you just don't know how the world works, do you? You have no idea how it operates. None. You need to genuflect to us. You need to bow to us, not to the Saudis, but to everyone else, but to us. We are the elites of Europe, and we know better than you what to do with all that luxuriant cash. It's great. It's grand. Keep it coming. Because, again, just like Barack Hussein Obama, we know what to do with your cash better than you do. In the chat room, in Ken McClinton's chat room, I have all sorts of axioms. There's BZ's axiom for terror. There's BZ's reversal axiom. And there's also BZ's criminal axiom. And now I'm going to have to apply that to Europe. Because I one moment. Hang on, if you would. You're going to hear me just for a second there. This is Jim Curtis calling in. I'm going to put you on mute. You're going to hear a break, and then we're going to be back to talk to you. So, Jim Curtis, don't go away. You're on the telephone. Please stay on the telephone. I'm going to finish my little thought here. We're going to go to a break, and then you'll hear me pick you up again. So, in any event, what I was saying is that BZ's criminal axiom goes like this, because this is how criminals think in the world. What's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine, unless you're strong enough to keep it yourself or to keep me from getting it. That's how the world works in the criminal set. And now apparently, as far as the Europeans are concerned, that's the way that they think of you, the average tax-paying American. You work, you slave, you pay your taxes because they need it. They demand it. They want it. They are entitled to it. So, American taxpayer, just put your nose to the grindstone because the Europeans, you need harder work and more of it. We'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying cow for the stupid program.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Socko as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reaver of Common Sense show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com and highplansdailynews.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Doing the job the American media maggots won't. Fundamentally changing America, one diaper at a time. Here is, courtesy of the SHR Media Network, the bloviating Zeppelin.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is my pleasure now to introduce a brand new individual to the Berserk Bobcat Saloon, and that's author J.L. Curtis, who goes by the name of Jim. I originally discovered Jim a number of years ago when I came upon his blog at oldnfo.blogspot.com, and his blog is otherwise known as Nobody Asked Me, and where his motto is Veritas Nas Libertat. I think I slaughtered that one. That means the truth will set you free. So he and I have read each other's blogs, and we've commented back and forth for quite some time now. But I hadn't known until recently, though, that Jim is an accomplished author, and that's one of the things that I'm going to talk to him about tonight, amongst others. I got a lot of questions, and I hope we get to it all. Now, Jim Curtis currently has 4 books out that I have read and that I have purchased myself, and that's beginning with the Gray Man series. The first one is Gray Man Vignettes, and I think that was first published in 2014. And it should not be confused with Mark Greeny's series on the Gray Man with an A. Jim writes his Gray Man series with an E, Gray, G-R-E-Y, Gray. And Jim has also published 3 more books in the series. The Gray Man Payback in 2014, The Gray Man Changes in 2016, The Gray Man Partners in 2016, have read them all. And new for him now, he's decided that he's going to make a little foray into science fiction with his newly published book, RimWorld, Into the Green. So, welcome to the Saloon, Jim Curtis.
Good evening, BZ. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here. To give a little background on you, a little bit more, you are on Amazon.com, so any and all of those books that you wish to purchase, folks, you can go to Amazon.com, just like any other author that's out. And you, Jim, you've got an Amazon.com author page, which quantifies you in this fashion. It says, J.L. Curtis was born in Louisiana in 1951. Ha, I got some time on you. And was raised in the Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas area. He began his education with guns at age 8 with an SAA and a grandfather that had carried one for, quote, work, unquote. Well, that's a question. He began competitive shooting in the 1970s, an interest he still pursues, time permitting. He's a retired naval flight officer, hence his blog post, Old NFO. Having spent 22 years serving his country, he's an NRA instructor, a retired engineer in the defense industry, and now a starving author. He lives in North Texas. He currently has 2 series in work, The Gray Man, a Texas-based current fiction series revolving around law enforcement officers and Marines, and the newest series, RimWorld, and that got started by a short story that, listen to this, folks, this was an Amazon bestseller for 5 days, after its release. I say that's pretty damn significant. So, Jim Curtis, welcome to the Saloon. It is really, really good to be able to speak to you and not just write you in your blog and we comment back and forth, and it takes a long time before all those comments sort of come and go and that sort of thing.
That it does.
First,
it's a pleasure to be here, and one thing that I will say,
yes, sir,
just off the top, on your previous monologue, one of the most important things that Trump did not say today at the meeting in Brussels is he did not reaffirm Article 5. And a lot of people are missing that.
Okay. Go on.
Article 5 is that if anybody is attacked, everyone defends. Trump did not reinforce that today, and that is what has them scared. More so than the talk about having to pay their fair share.
Aha, very interesting. Okay, Jim, I have to admit it. You beat me to the punch because I was wondering, I don't know, do we want to go into politics? Okay, you've burst that bubble. Yep, we're going into politics. Good, and that's great.
Sorry.
That's No. You do not need to apologize. Not here at the Saloon. No, sir. This is what we do. We do politics. We do ground level, gut busting politics. Whatever needs to be done. So thank you for bringing that up. We kind of broke ground on that, if we were. But tell you what,
being ex-military, I have experience with NATO quite extensively. 11 years in the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. And other parts of the world that we shall not discuss, but I'm very familiar with the NATO assets as late as 2010. So,
wow, okay.
I look at stuff like that with a little bit different perspective than a lot of people, I believe.
Okay.
And one of the things is that it is hard for John Q. Public in the United States to understand the politics in Europe as you described them earlier. That is one of the things that you have to have traveled and spent time in these countries to see how the people interact and to see how small Europe really is. I mean, we think nothing of driving here in Texas 2 or 3 hours to have dinner.
That's true.
If you're in Europe, 2 or 3 hours takes you through 2 countries.
No, that's absolutely correct.
The other thing is most Europeans are multilingual, 3, 4, or 5 languages. That is a huge difference than the average American.
Well,
many Americans may speak 2, if that.
Yeah, if that. And primarily not well in English.
True. Very true.
Tell you what, we're going to get to some of that stuff, but I'd like to kind of start at the start, if you will. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up? And it almost sounds like you moved around a lot.
I was born in a little town called Gina, Louisiana. Raised in Texarkana, Arkansas. And the allusion to my grandfather who carried a single-action army and started me shooting, my dad died when I was 9 years old. So my grandfather was instrumental in raising me. And he was a retired railroad engineer and railroad investigator that worked for Union Pacific and a number of other railroads.
Really?
And I have a picture. Yeah, I have a picture that I am still hunting for after the move of him in 1906 or 7, getting on a train, climbing on a steam engine with the 45 that I still have belted on his hip, and an 1886 Winchester that I still have over his shoulder, because they were still robbing trains.
Jesus. I would love to see that photograph. Tell you what, when you unearth that, if you happen to make a copy, I'd love to post that baby on the blog. That would be, I would suspect, an absolutely awesome photograph to see.
It is, and I do have to find it. I know it's somewhere in the house. I'm just not sure where. I'm still trying to get boxes unpacked, to be perfectly honest.
But
go ahead.
It was apparently your grandfather that started your interest in firearms at that very young age then.
That is correct. He talked my mother into letting me have a Stevens crack shot, single shot 22, which I also still have.
Wow.
That I literally have worn the sear off to the point that you look at it, it goes off, but it's still shootable.
I still have an ancient Marlin 22 that my dad gave to me that shot 22 long rifle. That was a great little plinker, and I keep that thing in absolutely splendid shape. Did you move around a lot? Now, your father died at a young age. Was he in the military by any chance?
No, he was actually in the oil business. He was, as a young man, he was in World War I.
Oh, my.
Never made it to Europe because he was too good a shot. He was actually pulled out and put into Camp Beauregard in Louisiana as a firearms instructor teaching shooting.
Wow.
But he was in the oil business, and he was a driller, and then when he married my mother, he moved over to the pipeline side of the business. So they moved around quite a bit before I was born.
Okay. All righty. Did you, I'm guessing you graduated high school. Did you go to college? Did you do that before you went into the military?
I got drafted out of college in 1970. The 2S deferment went dead, as us old folks remember.
Right.
So I went in the Navy, got my degree while I was on active duty in the Navy, so I'm what they call a Mustang.
Yes, excellent. Good for you.
11 years enlisted, 11 years commissioned, 11 years in the Atlantic, 11 years in the Pacific. So extensive travel would be a nice way to put it. Pretty much moved every 2 years on the average. And retired in 1992, too dumb to get a real job, went back to work for the Navy for another basically 23 years.
When you write, when you indicate and you say that you're old NFO, a lot of people don't know what an NFO is. Can you explain what that is and what you did as an NFO?
Certainly. NFO is a naval flight officer. In other words, we're the guys that tell the pilot where to go and how to get there, sometimes even politely. NFOs function in a number of different aircraft. For example, two-place airplanes like an F-18, F-14, F-4,
right.
They were called a RIO, or radar intercept officer.
Right.
In an EA-6B, they were called a BN, or a bombardier navigator. I flew P-3s primarily, which is the long-range sub-hunter.
Oh, the Orions, right.
Yes. And we were called TACOs, or tactical coordinators, and mission commanders.
Yeah, basically.
So we managed the back of the airplane.
Yeah, basically Lockheed Electras. Four-engined beasties that used to fly fairly close to the ocean, if I'm not mistaken. Now, did you spend most of your time?
Correct.
Did you spend most of your time as an NFO in those, or did you graduate? Did you go to other aircraft?
I stayed in P-3s. When I retired, I had over 7,000 hours in P-3s.
I bet you could tell us a lot of stories then about sonobuoys, couldn't you?
Oh, yes. I have littered many an ocean with sonobuoys.
I wager you had. Now, for the people that don't know what that is, or what the job of an Orion, that four-engined propeller-driven, it's a turbojet actually, aircraft, can you tell the people what the job of that aircraft was for the U.S. Navy?
Oh, well, actually, there are multiple jobs that the P-3 did. We did, submarine warfare was the primary mission. In other words, we chased submarines, ours, theirs, and a few other people's.
Okay.
All over the world. We did what was called Maritime Air Patrol, which is freedom of the seas, and also sea air rescue, search and rescue. We were the alternate with the Coast Guard for long-range rescue. In other words, if everybody's, I'm sure most people have watched Deadliest Catch.
Right, exactly.
We actually flew out of Adak, Alaska, and we would go out on the same thing as C-130s did. When they call in and they'll, hey, we're sinking, we would fly out, try to find them, drop a raft to them, things like that.
Yeah, basically.
Go ahead.
Basically the same thing the Coasties do. They fly out in a 130 and drop stuff to people. So that's cool. You got to do a whole lot of stuff.
Oh yeah, and we flew intercepts on Bears, the Bear Russian aircraft. We did surveillance. We did electronic intelligence. We did a number of different other missions. One of the probably more interesting stories, although I didn't personally do it, is the P-3s have over 11,000 hours over land in the global war on terror, doing video surveillance, doing video surveillance to protect SEALs and other special missions units in Afghanistan and Iraq. And I can't go into much more detail than that, but quite an extensive amount of time over the land.
I did not have any kind of an idea. Very interesting. Now, for the folks that are not familiar with the vernacular and military aircraft, an Orion, the one that Jim would fly in, doesn't land on an aircraft carrier, and it has to be based on land. Where were some of your assignments, if you can tell me?
Well, there was Iceland, northern Japan, southern Japan. Masala, Japan is northern. Kadena, Okinawa, which is southern Japan now. Cuba Point in the Philippines, Cam Bay, Vietnam, Utapao, Thailand, Diego Garcia.
Oh, hell.
Indian Ocean, Bandar Abbas, Iran. Let's see, St. Maughan, Scotland, Lodges in the Azores, Bermuda, Rhoda, Spain, Sigonella, Sicily. Those are just the major ones.
I think maybe you should have just told me where you weren't assigned. Holy moly.
I didn't even get into the Persian Gulf stuff yet. So.
Oh, my Lord. Okay, so your interests are wide and varied, shall we say. When did you kind of started to get interested in politics, or maybe I should say, when did you start to realize that you were a conservative?
Probably about 1971.
Oh, right. Yeah, that military part.
Yeah. People swear up and down that the military is equally split, and I would say from my experience, it's not. There's probably about 10% that are liberal. Probably 90% are libertarian to conservative, because the military are the people on the front line.
Right.
They are the people, and I feel it's very appropriate that we were talking about this, because this is Memorial Day weekend.
Exactly.
We have lost over 1 million military personnel in America's wars. Those are the people that never get the credit. They are the unsung heroes. They are why we are still speaking English.
Yes.
Why we have the freedoms that we do. All those bits and pieces that everybody likes to ignore are because of the military. And I know you have studied the history. World War I was the war to end all wars.
Yes, so they thought.
Yeah. But 21 years later, they started another one. Effectively, in those two wars alone, wiped out 2 generations, basically, of men from many countries. how many people did we lose in those two? And then we come back to Korea, we come to Vietnam.
Right.
You know, and we had a history of winning up until Vietnam.
Yes, that was the 58K waste by Lyndon Johnson and Jack Kennedy. Good on them. That was the domino theory. 58,000 people lost in Vietnam. I have some definite thoughts about that. My guess would be that you do too. You said that also you were in the defense industry. Now, after you got out of the military, what did that entail? Is that anything that you can talk about?
Basically, I spent years working for a defense contractor as an engineer on systems, and I spent the last 12 years working for the Office of Naval Research doing new technology testing for the Navy worldwide. So that's why I was saying I still, up until basically January 2016, was still interacting with fleet personnel today in various places in the world.
Yeah, so you have a lot of insight, just probably like I have a lot of contacts that are still left in law enforcement on the federal and the state and local levels. I'll wager you probably have an arseload of contacts in the defense world, in the military, intelligence, that sort of thing. People that tell you a few things now and then, so to speak.
I may or may not get things dribbled in my direction, yes.
Exactly. So to speak, yes. I got to ask you, though, what made you want to start your own blog? oldnfo.blogspot.com is where you can find Jim Curtis. By the way, that's who I'm speaking to right now.
That's the old address. I went to WordPress, so it's oldnfo.org.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. My mistake.
Not a problem.
So what did you attempt to do by doing that? Did you just feel one day, I've got to express myself? What motivated you to start your blog?
I was on gun forums for many years, going back to the firing line and some of the original good gun forums before most of them went south. Glock, ARFCOM, Sniper's Hide, some of the others. And I was watching the gun forums turn into the mall ninja. Everybody was an expert.
Oh.
And a couple of friends of mine had started blogs, and I got to looking around, and I went, what the hell? So, matter of fact, 10 years ago this month, I started blogging.
Oh, okay.
And,
did you visited Kim Detroit too, I guess?
Yep. Kim Detroit was one of them. Of course, Tam. Of course, I knew Tam from the gun forums too.
Right.
Larry Correa, Peter Grant, Law Dog. And that was kind of the group that I watched start blogging, and I went, I'm bored to tears half the time sitting in an apartment in D.C., so can't afford to go to the bar and drink, and started blogging. And,
okay.
10 years later, I'm still trying to get some brain dribblings out there pretty much on a daily basis.
Well, that creates a great question in and of itself. Most people will create a blog and they'll abandon it in, a month or two. And so what that illustrates to me is that you have some real tenaciousness, real tenaciousness when it comes to writing. And to keep a blog going for 10 years, I started mine in 2004. So I've been around for 13 years. I just moved once. I moved one time to WordPress. But that tells me some very interesting things about you. So my guess is that you probably discovered two very serious things. Number one is writing is hard work. And then number two, I would guess you really started to enjoy writing. Is that true?
Yes, writing is definitely hard work. It's hard to get something up every day, as you well know. It can be fun, and it can also be extremely frustrating. Because, go ahead.
We have about one more minute to go before the break. I just want to let you know, so go ahead and finish your thought, please, Jim.
It can also be very frustrating because the ability to write something every day is hard. It becomes, and I think this is why many people quit, it becomes a job.
Right.
But for me, it's a positive step to make that time to sit down every day and do the blog post.
Yep, because that I would guess that gets you into the habit, building the habit of sitting down and writing something every day. That'd be my guess.
That's exactly right. And that's what it's all about.
One final question before we go to the break. Like I say, we got about a minute left, and we'll be back after that. You have 5 books out now in print. You got 1 short story out on Kindle, which obviously got you interested in science fiction. When did you think, I'm going to write a book?
We'll continue that one after the break, but I will tell you, it goes back to the gun forums.
Ah, okay.
When I watched Larry Correa, Peter Grant, Marco Cluse, and Mike Kupari all get published. And we had shared stories back and forth on the gun forum.
And you probably thought that I can do that stuff every bit as well as they can.
Maybe not as well, but I was at least going to try like hell. And Vignettes is not real good, and I'll be quite honest, but it's a series of short stories that I had written on various gun forums and on my blog. And I had over 50 rejections from publishers. And the one that really ticked me off was the one that said, even if I self-published it in Vanity Press, I wouldn't sell 200 copies in my lifetime.
Okay, tell you what, hold that thought. We're going to go to a break. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we're speaking to Jim Curtis, who has his blog at oldnfo.org. oldnfo.org. And he's an author. He's written 5 books, a minimum of 5 books that I'm aware of. So I'll tell you what, hang on. Let's go through the break, and we'll come right back, and we'll continue talking to Jim Curtis. Don't go away.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying coffee, stupid bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sako as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's Bigfooted enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet. Via the glorious SHR Media, gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Coming soon to ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. And despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
Yes, and we are back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Welcome back to the Thursday equivalent of the Aftermath. I quantify that as the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloons show that features all the rest of the shite that I couldn't fit into the Tuesday show and into last night's Wednesday's Sackheads radio show. We have the pleasure of speaking to author Jim Curtis, who is on the telephone right now. And my last question basically was, when did you decide that you're going to write a book? And my next question kind of leads me into this one. Are there any specific authors that you enjoy or may have kind of motivated you to write, authors that you read customarily?
Well, I would say first and foremost, the giants of science fiction. Heinlein, Arthur C. Clarke, Lovecraft, all of those, plus Louis L'Amour, Zane Grey, those were what I grew up reading in the 50s and 60s.
Oh, you're a man after my own heart.
Then current fiction would be Larry Correia, the Monster Hunter series.
Okay.
And Larry's actually a friend of mine. Again, from the gun blogs. Peter Grant, who has done both science fiction and westerns. John Ringo. Tom
okay. Yeah, John Ringo. I've read some of his books.
John's also ex-military. He's ex-82nd Airborne. So he's quite a character.
Oh, yes, if he's that, yes. I bet he is.
Tom Kratman's retired Special Forces Green Beret type. There are quite a few female authors that I find interesting in that the different perspectives. One of them is Sarah Hoyt.
Okay.
She has a series out called Dark Ship Revenge. Very good series. Very, very good character development in all of the authors. Excuse me. Those are the folks that I tend to read when I have time to read. I'm still reading technical stuff. I know I'm a dinosaur because I still get a newspaper delivered every day.
Yeah, me too.
And, various military and, of course, American Rifleman, Shooting Illustrated magazines. But you were mentioning about writing. But one of the things is in the series, I set out to not write a perfect character.
Okay.
Which is a little different because that's one of the things that frustrates me about so much of the writing today is a lot of the social justice warriors and others in the science fiction world write perfect characters. They never make a mistake. They never do anything wrong. And I tried, my characters are based on composites of real people.
Okay.
So I actually set out to write them as people, like us. They have foibles. They make mistakes. They don't do everything perfectly. And the other thing, especially in the Gray Man series, was to make sure that all of the guns used were correct. The ballistics were correct. The little things like that, which is another huge irritation for me, is the number of authors, and I hate to say this, but Stephen Hunter's one of them, that screw up the guns. And Hunter wrote the Swagger books. They're great books, but there are things in there that just throw you out of the story.
Yeah, funny you should mention Stephen Hunter because I've read a lot of his books. Tell you what, let's go back to you just for a second, and let's go back to your character. You have a recurring character in the Gray Man series whose name is John Cronin. Can you tell us about John, where he came from, his background, something so that the listeners can understand who he is, and mostly so the listeners can begin to understand the genre and what it is you're trying to say in your books, in your Gray Man series?
John Cronin is a throwback. He's a Texas cop, deputy sheriff in West Texas. He's a grouchy old fart. He is an ex-Green Beret, 60s era of Vietnam. He played up on the trail. So he has been in the front lines of more than one combat situation. He spent some time with the DEA as a adjunct, which is what they did before the DEA was fully formed, was they would actually pull people from law enforcement, and they would basically go, if you want to use the term TAD, temporary active duty, with DEA for a year to 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those people ended up in South America in some rather interesting situations, shall we say.
Yes, probably with Air America, maybe?
Yes, that's very possible.
Possible?
And, yeah. I know nothing.
That's right. I don't know anything about that either. All I know is it was a movie with Mel Gibson. That's all I know about it, I swear.
Yeah, it was actually about a guy named Neil Hansen, who happens to be a friend of mine. But that's neither here nor there.
That's right.
The other thing is that the character takes place in Pecos County, Texas, which is near the border. It's not on the border, but it crosses I-10 and I-20 come through it. So it's on a major drug corridor. And one of the things that Cronin does is to fight drugs and the drugging's down there.
Okay.
Now, the interesting thing a lot of people don't realize is that a number of law enforcement agencies, as you well know, send people to what's called National Academy.
Right.
Which is run by the FBI out of Quantico, Virginia.
Right.
And they bring law enforcement from all over the world in there. And they put them through classes, and they cover soup to nuts of law enforcement, investigations, intelligence, various other things.
Yeah,
and
you can
I have a couple of friends that are actually NA grads.
You can go to the NA. You can be pretty much through any country. You live in their dorms. You eat. You go to the bars. The FBI, because I went to the FBI. People don't know this, but the only two people that train with the FBI in Quantico, which is a Marine base, are the FBI and the DEA. All the other people that are trained up, they all go down to FLETC down in Brunswick at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center down there. So, yeah, I'm well acquainted with the FBI dorms in the NA. And it's a good school. It's a good school to go to. And it gets, like you say, it gets everybody all together sort of on the same page.
And the other thing that it does, which is very interesting, is it builds a lot of cross-country cooperation with people, which is how Cronin ends up going to Thailand, among other things. That may or may not be based on somebody that really did that, but
maybe
those are the kinds of things that I try to bring into the story, and the instances. And I have had people point blank email me and go, "How the hell did you know my daddy?" Everything was, this incident, this specific incident, this date, this time, this place. And of course, I tell them, no, it wasn't. It's all fiction. Made up.
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
But I did not.
In the Marines, yes.
I did not know an Air America pilot named Rodehaver. Okay, I did not know him. So put that completely out of your brain for any minute. What? Hey, tell you what, Jim. What genre would you quantify your Gray Man series in if people are looking to kind of figure out, is this a series I really want to sink my teeth into? What would you say?
It's current fiction. it basically fits the current fiction profile. It's not urban fiction because it takes place in a country.
Right.
But it's just general fiction. It's crime and law enforcement more than anything else. And, of course, I bring the Marines in since they were easy to get my hands around up there. And that was written kind of as a tribute to some friends of mine who were active duty Marines for a number of years. And sadly, 3 of them have now passed.
Oh, that's...
But that was why I brought Marines into it rather than Navy guys.
Let's stop right here just for a second, because I always have to make sure that I ask any guest on the show that comes here the first time, and I don't ask this any subsequent times, and I like to have people come back on the show as many times as they wish. But I customarily ask my guests to tell me about what I call a major pivotal point in their lives. I, for example, had 3 very, very significant pivotal points in my life. Can you tell us what any of a really pivotal point in your life might be? Something that sort of got your attention, and for whatever reason, just there was a sea change that occurred after that.
I would say probably one was the Mayaguez incident, which took place off of Cambodia in 1975.
Oh, the Mayaguez? Right.
Yes. We were actually the crew that went out and found it.
Really?
And coming around the back of the boat as it was parked there by Kopang Island and getting shot at, and, watching the AAA come up at us. Or actually, it wasn't AAA, it was 30 millimeter, sorry. I'll get it right in a minute.
That's
coming
right.
up off of a swift boat that we thought was friendly until we realized that the Cambodians had somehow gotten their hands on one of them. That was kind of a sea change moment. It's like, those son bitches are trying to kill my ass.
Yes.
Then it got a little personal.
Yes, it did. I'll wager that.
That was probably one of them. Another one I would have to say would be when the Navy made me a mission commander and I flew the first serious collection mission that I had to fly as the mission commander in charge of 2 aircraft out doing specific things for the Navy. And we used to, jokingly say it was every chance in the world to F it up and very few to do it right. Because we were spending, a butt ton of money, almost $1 million a flight to do certain things. And to have that level of responsibility as a Lieutenant JG, it really brought it home to me that, I had to grow up and do the job that I was assigned to do, and it was all on me.
Yes.
There was nobody that was going to take the blame. It was me. And that was a huge sea change in accepting responsibility, I guess I would say.
Yes, because responsibility, a huge burden to bear, and discipline, things that unfortunately are lacking in quite a number of people today. Going back to your writing, now what would you guess was the sort of the first major problem that you encountered when you're trying to get a book out of your brain, down into a keyboard, and then into print? What was the first thing that came up and said, "Oh my God, I didn't think this was going to happen"?
The first and foremost, which I still have a problem with, is 40 years worth of doing technical writing, because my grammar and my punctuation suck.
Okay, then that's why God gave you an editor then, probably.
Exactly. An editor and alpha and beta readers that are great at fixing my screw-ups. Probably the most frustrating thing was the just jumping through the various hoops to try to get published. And that was why I went Amazon and what they call indie publishing. So I'm basically publishing through Amazon and CreateSpace.
Okay.
The advent of indie publishing has probably been one of the things that is going to help destroy the big five, as they call them, the big five traditional publishers.
Right.
Because indie publishing through Amazon, Kindle, along that line accounts for almost 70% of the books published in the world today.
Well, sure, and it's been responsible for the demise of, say, Walden bookstores and not Barnes & Noble yet. There are any number of big bookstore chains that are primarily gone now. If you have a bookstore chain, I think the last one left is Barnes & Noble. Then you have smaller, bookstores around that I like to frequent. But you're absolutely correct.
Well, and part of that is due to the big five and their pricing structure. Books A Million is actually surviving because they mark books down. Their markup is very, very small compared to a Barnes & Noble. I mean, you go to Barnes & Noble, you're going to pay $30+ for a hardback. You're going to pay, $15 to $20 for a softback.
Right.
If you go to Books A Million, you're going to see those same books 3 to 4 months later for half those prices because they're returns. But the advent of the Kindle, the Nook, the e-book, if you will,
right,
has done more to allow people options in reading, because you can order, if you go to one of the big five, say Stephen King, for example,
right,
you're going to pay $14, $15 for an e-book from Stephen King. If you go to somebody like me, you're going to pay anywhere from 99 cents to $4.99 for a book. Granted,
Well, yeah.
I'm no Stephen King. I never will be. But
no, I tell you what,
has,
you don't want to be Stephen King. Stephen King, I don't know what everybody else thinks about Stephen King, and I'm glad you brought this guy up. I read maybe 3 books of Stephen King, and he goes on and on and on and on and on. Talk about unnecessarily wordy. I can't get through a Stephen King book anymore. I absolutely cannot. I'm sure he's as wealthy as Croesus. Good for him. But he bores the fuck out of me. I'm sorry, but it's absolutely true. I can't read Stephen King, which is why I like your damn books. I like your books. And that's why you're on today.
And they're actually all on sale starting tomorrow through the weekend.
Oh, tell us. Yeah, I was going to get to that. Tell us about that. Tell us about your Memorial Day sale.
What I do, it's a way to honor those that didn't come back. And a portion of the proceeds that I get this weekend will go to AmericanSnipers.org.
Cool.
I support them. That's about the only thing I really enjoy shooting anymore is the long-range sniper rifles, because I can lay down and do that and don't have to run.
Right.
But it's a way to kind of give a little bit back. I mean, my books aren't that expensive to start with, but it's getting things out there to people where they have a chance to read it and try it. If they like it, they may come back. If they don't, well, they didn't waste a bunch of money on one of my books. The situations in my books are very realistic. I have a group of friends that I can bounce things off of who have, as they say, seen the elephant, and they're more than happy to point out errors.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, the shooting scene that you remember from Payback, the long-range shot in Payback,
right?
That was actually a 2-week argument to get that scene done, because
an argument.
Two of my, one alpha and one beta reader, are both also long-range shooters, and it was a 2-week argument over the bullet dropped in that shot.
I bet that was a good one.
What I go through, yeah. But you could actually run the ballistics on that. If you have a ballistics chart, you can run the ballistics on it, and what is in the book is actually correct. And all 3 of us agree within 2 inches that it's correct.
You've
things
transitioned
like that. Go ahead.
Well, first let me ask you a question because it's getting down to the bottom of the hour. We originally agreed that you were going to be here for an hour. You had some issues with your throat recently. I don't know how you're feeling in terms of that. You're welcome to stay longer if you wish. If you need to go at the bottom of the hour, I completely understand. So you're welcome to stay. Okay, then let me ask you this question then. You've transitioned over now into science fiction with your newest book, RimWorld, Into the Green. So what made you want to change genres?
It wasn't what made me. It was a challenge from Peter and Law Dog that I couldn't write science fiction. So I wrote Stranded, a little short story,
right,
in about 2 days.
And that's the one that sold so well at Amazon.
Right. And I wrote that as from a maintainer's perspective, not a hero, a maintainer. And I went, oh, damn, now I got to write a real novel. So RimWorld is that switch in genres. And it, again, is not a perfect character. It's a beat-up old Marine, basically, that's been kicked out and tries to go home, if you will, to a planet that he helped to discover as one of the galactic scouts. And he just basically wants to go to retire to his cabin up in the mountains that reminds him of the Earth and not do anything. And it doesn't quite work out that way.
Well,
go ahead.
You have one book out, RimWorld, and your character's Ethan Fargo. And by the way, I'm almost entirely finished with RimWorld because I only got it about 2 days ago. The delivery up to where I am is not the best in the world or maintained by the best and the brightest. But in any event, the first thing when I got this and I started reading it was, okay, Ethan Fargo, got it. I see where he's going. Do you have any books about him coming in the future, sir? Do you think you're going to make a series out of him?
Yes, there will be a series. I'm working on the second one. I'm working on the fifth Gray Man and the second RimWorld at the same time. So
okay.
I'm actually, when I get stuck on one, I go to the other one right, and then I go back and forth. So, yes, there will be a second RimWorld. Pat Patterson's review was rather interesting in that he was picking apart all the things that were hanging, as he called them, that were avenues that hadn't been explored. And I almost wanted to answer him back and say, well, damn, I couldn't put it all in the first book. There's got to be something left to write about for the second and follow-on books.
Yeah, no kidding.
But there will be. Right now I have it plotted as about a 4-book series.
Oh, okay. All right. So you already pretty much have in your mind the big story arc of it all. You kind of end up, you already kind of know where you're going to go with it then.
Right.
Well, let me tell you one thing. I'm going to continue to purchase your books. And we've got.
Well, I appreciate that.
We've got about 4 minutes left before the bottom of the hour, so I have to ask you a couple of final questions. Number one, when I asked you, hey, is writing hard work, you gave me a laugh, so that tells me obviously, well, hell yeah. So tell me, what do you do? What's your regimen for writing? Because I'm guessing you want to get into the habit of it all. So what do you do when you write, or how frequently do you do that?
I try to write daily. My goal is 2,500 to 3,000 words a day, or 5 to 6 hours a day in front of the computer, either writing or doing research every day.
Okay.
Basically, I may take a day off on the weekend, or, if we're going somewhere to do research, do that. But it's every day. Larry Correa, a good example. He writes 8 to 5. Now, he gets up in the morning, writes for 4 hours, has lunch, takes an hour break for lunch, and then writes till 5 o'clock. That's his job. I'm looking at it the same way. That is my job, is to write those books. And it takes me about 3 to 4 months to write a book. and then it takes about 6 months to do the editing, the proofing, and get it published. So I'm doing about my goal is to do 2 books a year. Some people try to do 3-4 books a year. I just don't feel that I can deliver a quality product if I'm rushing like that.
Yeah, and you would.
I try to actually do research. Even with the science fiction stuff, I'm doing research. And trust me, there are some rat holes that you can go down in science fiction research that, you surface 3 days later and go, damn, now what do I do with all this knowledge? But go ahead.
Are you? Do you find yourself to be a morning writer or an evening writer?
Both, actually. It kind of depends on the mood. If I get up now on the weekends, I'll normally try to write in the morning and go do things in the afternoon. But during the week, I'll do research in the morning and write in the afternoon. That's normally my pattern. Okay.
Well, folks, it's about the end of the time. We've been speaking to Jim Curtis at oldnfo.org if you want to go to his blog. So, Jim, you got to tell us this. Where can we go to find your books? How can we order them? And just if you would, remind everybody real quick again about your sale that you've got going on.
They're available on Amazon under J.L. Curtis. They're available both in Kindle and in paperback. And I will apologize for the cost of the paperbacks. They're higher than I would like, but they are basically print on demand. So the Kindles run basically from, with the sale, 99 cents on vignettes, 99 cents on RimWorld Stranded. All the Kindle Gray Man are on sale through Monday. They'll be basically half off starting tomorrow morning, and they will gradually go back up to full price on next Tuesday. They're all available, like I said, on Amazon. You can go either way. If you would like an autographed copy, just do the contact form on my blog, and I'll be more than happy to work with you to get an autographed hard copy to you.
Outstanding. Jim Curtis, I got to say, thank you very, very much, sir, for chatting with us tonight. We've been speaking to veteran and author Jim Curtis. Thank you so very much for being here in the Saloon. And, sir, you are cordially invited back anytime you damn well wish.
Well, thank you, VZ. I do appreciate it. And maybe next time we can get some questions from some of the callers, or the folks that,
That'd be good. That'd be great, as a matter of fact. Okay, folks, it's the bottom of the hour. We've been talking to Jim Curtis. He's the author of the Gray Man series, and he's also the author of another science fiction series coming out, RimWorld. Please don't go away. Jim, thanks for being on the radio today, and we're going to be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads radio show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Mim from Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds. Join your friends from SHR Media at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, July 19th through the 22nd for 3 amazing days of liberty-oriented discussion, investment advice, and the Anthem Film Festival. It's our big 10th anniversary, featuring keynote speaker William Shatner and Freedom Fest favorites, including Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Lee Edwards, David Boaz, Doug Casey, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Grover Norquist, Peter Schiff, and many more. Don't miss out. Register at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code SHR Media.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. It's Thursday, it's May 25th, it's called The Aftermath, which I say is basically all the shite that I couldn't fit into my Tuesday night show, and for whatever reason I didn't squeeze into the Wednesday Sackheads radio show. We were just speaking to author Jim Curtis, and he's got 2 series out, well, 1 series out of 4 books called the Gray Man series, and he's going to be starting another one in science fiction called Rimworld. And here's the deal. I read his books, I purchase his books, and I'm not going to have anybody on the show that I don't read, purchase, enjoy, etc., because I don't want people just because to get people. Now, I said in chat that I'm trying to set some interviews up with some authors in the future. I'm trying to see if I can get C.J. Box. If you haven't read any of his books about the game warden in Wyoming, Joe Pickett, you really should do that. Really enjoy him. Brad Thor, he's a suspense writer. I've been sending stuff back and forth with him, and the guy I really want to get on is I want to get on Joe Wamba. Because he and I were sort of buds for a while. And if I could get on Gerald Petovich, who wrote the book and translated into the movie To Live and Die in L.A., I'm going to try to see if I can get him on too. But holy moly, would I ever love to talk to Joe Wamba. Because he's the idol. He's the guy that came up with the term scrote way back then that, of course, we used in law enforcement for quite some time until it went sort of out of favor, if you will. So I'm trying to see if I can get some of those guys up. In the meantime, we're going to go back to politics. And here's Trey Gowdy basically saying that, you know what? I don't think I'm particularly motivated at this point to reauthorize any kind of a surveillance program here in the United States.
You were asking questions about the unmasking. What were you going for there?
We're not going to reauthorize these surveillance programs if the American people are not satisfied that their security is going to be safeguarded. So leaks are one issue. The unmasking within the intelligence community, that is a privilege to be able to request that a U.S. person's name be unmasked. And I want to know who's making the request, what is the evidentiary basis of that request, and if it's late in your tenure, like the day before you leave office, that should send off alarms and sirens in your head as to why that person did it.
Okay, 2 more specific questions on that. Do you have evidence that the Obama administration abused the unmasking and the procedures under the law?
Unfortunately, Trey Gowdy goes a little kind of wonky here. He's going to be doing just a bit of sidestepping, and I think I know why.
I don't have a good definition for the word abused. I need to know what the policies and procedures are, and I need to know the full universe of unmasking requests, where any denied, where some granted with very scant evidentiary basis. I don't want to accuse any administration of doing something until I have access to the facts, but it is certainly legitimate lane of inquiry.
So you're saying it's a possibility?
It is a possibility among lots of other possibilities, including that they follow the policies and follow the procedures. I want to know if there are certain trends, where there are more requests at the end, where certain
at the
people
end
making
of the administration.
requests.
Okay, got it.
Yes, sir.
Last question then, and then I've got to run, and I thank you for your time.
Yes, sir.
Do you believe this is how the Obama team could have spied on the Trump team? Is that a possibility or not?
Again, he's going to go a little equivocal on this.
I don't want to use the word spy because the unmasking, while very important, unmaskings that don't result in leaks is one category of internal deliberation. The unmaskings that result in leaks of classified information, that's a crime. So I want to be fair to the president. I'm not going to accuse him or anyone of spying until I have all the unmaskings, until we have an end to the leak investigation.
There's a lot to go through. I hope you come back, okay? Trey Gowdy, thank you for your time.
And, of course, recently President Trump has said that he pledges that leakers are going to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And most recently, there's a really good reason for that. From Daily Caller, Donald Trump pledged that those in his administration who are leaking sensitive information are going to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Hear, hear. So in a statement made today, the president said he asked the Department of Justice to launch a complete review into leaks, which he finds deeply troubling because they pose a grave threat to national security. Right, they pose a huge threat to national security, but they also do another thing as well. These leaks have been going on for a long time, and my administration will get to the bottom of it, Trump said in a statement. I'm asking the Department of Justice and other relevant agencies to launch a complete review of this matter, and if appropriate, the culprit should be prosecuted to the complete extent of the law. Here's why this is so incredibly important, and especially with regard to the Manchester bombing, because all this filibustering, essentially filibustering by the American media maggots, all has consequences. Okay, so after the New York Times, once again, decided that it was going to publish official police photographs taken right there at the scene at Monday's bombing there at the Manchester Arena, where 22 people were killed, about 119 people were injured, and those photographs showed shrapnel, a detonator, and a battery. Now the BBC reported that British police, here are the consequences. The British police are going to stop sharing intelligence with the U.S. because UK officials were outraged. As well they should be. So once again, just for a story, or more importantly, because it's more important to skewer and undermine President Trump than it is to keep the secrets of the United States or the secrets of the rest of the nations around the world. So that's the priority of the American media maggots. That's the stultifying, incredibly brain-glazing level to which the American media maggots, leftists, and Democrats will go in order to undermine Donald Trump. But now here's this from Lou Dobbs, and he says some pretty serious words about it. He says maybe it's time to go to war.
The concerted attacks now from all sides, the left-wing media, the Dems, weak-kneed Republicans, the latest feeding frenzy sparked by leaks in the Washington Post concerning whether Trump released classified information to the Russian foreign minister and ambassador, a story curiously released at the same time Mr. Trump is about to begin his first foreign trip as president Friday. The fact is, President Trump has the right as the chief executive to declassify information if that's what he chooses to do. The president was talking about intel that Israel developed regarding threats from the Islamic State, Israel issuing this statement. Israel has full confidence in our intelligence sharing relationship with the United States and looks forward to deepening that relationship in the years ahead under President Trump.
Stop. That's not what the American media maggots said. What the American media maggots said as a result of that story was Israel is shattered. They are shattered that Trump would do this, and it has hurt us deeply.
But the Washington Post revels in its unreality, celebrating in the newsroom the number of hits its attack on the president received online. And the Trump administration has a communications department behaving as though they were in the George W. Bush White House. Our president is under constant barrage from all quarters by the vapid but still venomous Dems on Capitol Hill, the left-wing national media, the toxic GOP elites, and much of the orthodoxy who hate almost as much as the left and the deep state denizens.
That also is absolutely correct. There are people on the GOP side, what I call the establihacks, who want President Trump to fail because he frightens them. He scares them. Yeah, he's off-center. Yeah, he's wild, weird, and wacky, but he's actually beginning to do some of the things that he said he was going to do. And I still go back to my primary bleat, which is this. Number one, he's not Hillary Clinton. Thank God for that. Number two, we've already got somebody established in SCOTUS right now, Neil Gorsuch, sometime this year. I've been told, and it's been confirmed, that we're probably going to see another vacancy in the Supreme Court. That's two. And from now, 2017 until the end of the term, 2020, beginning of 2021, my guess would be Donald Trump is going to get another opportunity for a third SCOTUS appointment. I would submit to you that through all of this stuff that's going on right now, that is probably going to be one of the critical elements of the Trump presidency.
That includes some of the wealthiest and most powerful people in this nation. And this president deserves the full commitment of his White House staff, who should be fighting as hard as the president for him, his agenda, and this country. The all-too-civil, low-energy Trump White House communications team remains flat-footed and failing. They need to change that. They aren't obviously fighters. They obviously aren't street smart.
Stop right there. If there's one thing that you and I know about the Democrats and the leftists is that they can unite remarkably and rather quickly when necessary. They can pretty much remain on message when necessary. They can do it remarkably faster than the GOP can. And the GOP continues to remain invertebrates. They are invertebrates. They are parameciums when it comes to messaging, when it comes to getting information out and then standing behind it. Because again, what happens at the end of the day is they all go to their various DC watering holes. There's backslapping all around. There's yelling in the Senate. There's yelling in Congress. And then they're all good buddies and friends at the end of the day where they knock down drinks there in D.C. Many of the GOP are every bit as bad and reprehensible as those on the Democrat side.
And they haven't been strategic. And they must change all of that. They must become all of that and much more, because the determined forces of evil that surround this White House are trying to destroy the Trump presidency and will settle, it appears, for nothing less. This is a war, damn it. So get to war.
That's right. It is a war. That's why I write on the top of my blog, when my head changes, I am pushback. I'm not here for the American media maggots. I'm here to throw out the stories that you're not going to hear that much of and to add some commentary here and there. But of course, today, what did we get today? We got the Trump travel stay blocked by a Virginia-based federal appeals court. Again, this just doesn't stop.
This was argued by the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals on May 8th. 13 of the 15 judges on the court were present at the time, the majority appointed by Democratic presidents. The central issue in the arguments that were heard that day were comments that then candidate Trump made on numerous occasions on the campaign trail that pointed to basically a de facto Muslim ban.
Since when are comments held out of court, not recorded on a paper, valid? Or when do they become considered? White Mamba and I completely agree on that. There's fake news. Guess the fuck what? There's also fake law.
in upholding the district court's decision to halt this executive order, the ban, the Fourth Circuit noted in today's opinion that the text of President Trump's executive order, quote, and I'm reading from the opinion today, speaks with vague words of national security, but in context drips with religious intolerance, animus, and discrimination.
Are you kidding me? Well, no, I'm not kidding you. This is the depths to which our courts have now sunk on behalf of leftists. This is where we are. This is the state of the federal appeals court today.
They added in the opinion, quoting again, on balance, we cannot say that the government's asserted national security interest outweighs the competing harm to plaintiffs of the likely establishment clause violation. The final tally in today's vote was 10-3, with 2 judges recusing themselves. Opponents to the ruling note that today's opinion follows Monday's terrorist attack in Manchester, England, committed by a British citizen of Libyan descent who had just returned from Libya. And they note that had such a ban been in place there, although this has nothing to do with United States law, but had such a ban been in place there, that attack might not have happened.
Bingo. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks, judges. So what does this mean? You have to do what I call the BZ logical extension. And the logical extension is this. Now we've got federal judges who basically are inviting Muslims to veto Americans' elections over campaign statements, over statements made during a campaign. So what you had is 10 progressive judges in Virginia who've decided that Muslims can ask judges to change the nation's national security and immigration policies whenever, the prior campaign statements by somebody, in this case, Donald Trump, in Democratic-held political elections. Now, you can go into a court and you can describe that as being unfair to Muslims living in America. The majority opinion said, to the extent that our review chills campaign promises to condemn and exclude entire religious groups, we think that a welcome restraint boasted the majority opinion, which was approved by 10 judges in that Richmond-based Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit. The Trump's president, his executive order on Islamic migration speaks with vague words of national security, but in context drips with religious intolerance. I'm going to ask White Mamba, okay, if you've read that, does it drip with religious intolerance? Does it drip with animus? Does it drip with discrimination? And what the hell does the 2016 election campaign have to do with anything as far as the judges are concerned? What they do is this. There was a dissent approved by 3 judges, and it talks about the political ambitions and the risks that are hiding behind that court's declaration of support, and these were support for the Islamic plaintiffs coming before the court. They wrote, the danger of the majority's new rule is that it will enable any court. This was my fear. It was that of White Mamas as well. It will enable any court to justify its decision to strike down any executive action with which it disagrees. I knew this is where the fuck this was going to go, and it's going there. Fake news, fake law. That 3-judge dissent, by the way, concluded this way. It said, unless corrected by the Supreme Court, the majority's new approach, which is unsupported by any Supreme Court case, will become a sword for plaintiffs to challenge facially neutral government actions, particularly those affecting regions dominated by a single religion. Stop. any of those Trump travel stays, by the way, did they point at Indonesia, which has the highest amount of Islamists and Muslims on the entire planet? No, it didn't, because that's where the trouble isn't right now. The dissent continued. Government officials will avoid speaking about religion, even privately, lest a court discover statements that could be used to ascribe a religious motivation to their future actions. And in the more immediate future, our courts will be faced with the unworkable task of determining when this president's supposed religious motive in the 2016 election has sufficiently dissipated. Let me read that to you again, because think of the potential of this. Now it's up to them to do this. In the more immediate future, our courts will be faced with the unworkable task of determining when this president's supposed religious motive has sufficiently dissipated so as to actually allow executive action toward these or any other majority Muslim countries. That was their dissent. That's what it was said. So if you didn't know, this lawsuit is brought by Muslim plaintiffs, and it was backed up by an arseload of standard, Mark I, Model I establishment, progressive, leftist corporate lawyers, against President Trump's executive order, which all it attempted to do was temporarily block or stay Muslim immigration from just six now, not 7, 6, of the 50 Muslim-majority countries all over the planet. And what it was attempting to do was allow some breathing time, basically, and allow officials on all sorts of levels to just step back and consider how they're going to try to institute these new safeguards against Islamic-inspired attacks by the growing influx of Muslim immigrants, the people that they call, refugees, air quotes, refugees, and their future American-born children. And all of these elements are coming into this nation. You could also quantify this nation as an increasingly diverse, chaotic, and divided nation. That's just here in the United States. Again, I say, you better thank your lucky stars that there's an Atlantic Ocean right now between us and everyone else over in Europe. And you might be saying to yourself, really, think about it. These judges are right. Trump's travel stay, nah. We need to have as many of these friendly Muslims here into the country from the Middle East and from North Africa as we possibly can take, because they need jobs. They really need jobs. They need help. That's exactly what they need. They need jobs and help, and it's the job of the United States to make sure that they get all the help that they need, because they're not going to try to influence our society or a country at all, are they? No, they wouldn't do that. All they want to do is come here and be Americans and assimilate. That's all their goal is, to be an American, a house, a white picket fence, a puppy dog. Send their kids to school. Have a great time. This story from thedailywire.com. Minnesota Senate wavering on bill targeting female genital mutilation because immigrant groups oppose it. Let that sink into your wheelhouse just a bit. It's already starting. It's right here in Minnesota Cold. The Minnesota Senate version of a bill passed by the Minnesota House that would punish parents who subjected their daughters to female genital mutilation, FGM, is stalling in the Senate because some members of Minnesota's immigrant and refugee communities oppose it. The House bill, introduced by Representative Mary Fransom. I wonder why it would be a female that would take umbrage to female genital mutilation. That question. Who knows? The House bill would make the crime a felony with a concomitant loss of custody and a prison term ranging from 5 to 20 years. It would also increase penalties for anyone performing the procedure. Female genital mutilation has been illegal in the state since Minnesota passed legislation in the 1990s. On September 30th, 1996, Congress criminalized FGM as part of the illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act of 1996, writing, "Whoever knowingly circumcises, excises, or infibulates the whole or any part of the labia majora, labia minora, or clitoris of another person who has not yet attained the age of 18 years shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 5 years or both." The law, though, was not enforced until recently when a Detroit doctor was arrested for performing that little teeny procedure. But even before that, Minnesota had addressed the issue, and in a far more reaching way. In 1994, Minnesota was the first state to enact legislation relating to FGM. And the state actually went out of its way to amend its criminal code to declare all of the other things that the other law said. But now, here we go. Now, the Council for Minnesotans of African Heritage, a nonprofit titled Saloon, and other groups assert that the punishment for the crime in the proposed legislation is unduly harsh, and thus parents from countries where genital cutting is common, because, all women would want that anyway, wouldn't they? Sure you do, women. Speak up. Let's hear it now. Would not seek medical care for the children. The Senate's bill author, Karen Housley, said she was considering delaying a vote on the legislation, adding, "We all agree this practice is absolutely horrible and something needs to be done. How can we empower communities to address this practice from within rather than having Big Brother come down and saying, this is wrong?"
Monsieur! Es un
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you'll find me on Twitter at bzepp and on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. My original intro music is by Possessed Tranquility. You can find them at reverbnation.com. Promotional consideration by Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. Every last damn one of my personal tiaras is by My Little Pony. Make no mistake. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I will be closely associating, I hope, within the next hour, within this hour. Thank you so kindly for listening live. Thanks for being involved in the chat room. Thanks for listening in podcast. And I want to say God bless. Take care to you and you and you. Be safe. Come back. Have a good Memorial Day. Come see me on Tuesday of next week.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.